My name's Jo Daly. I'm very pleased to be here today to talk to you and share a few of our experiences. This is Lucy. She'll be speaking to you after I've stopped yammering on. So, currently I'm head of production at a studio called Wushu. It's in Liverpool. Wushu was started in 2017 and it was founded by a group of veteran developers. We're a creative, professional, technical group working in the heart of the digital creative hub in Liverpool, which is called the Baltic Triangle. It's a really cool area, there's lots going on. Before I came to Wushu, I've been in games development since the 1990s, so quite a while now, mid-90s actually. And before coming to Wushu, I was also, as well as being in games dev, an associate professor at a university not too dissimilar to this one, where I taught in the games department. And I worked at a few other game studios as well, some of which you may recognise, some of which I suspect you won't recognise. Some of these are little indie studios that are no longer in existence. Some of them I don't think I could describe as indie. So, when I started in games development, there were no games courses, none at all. They didn't exist in the mid-90s. And I decided I wanted to be a games developer despite the fact that I had never touched a computer. Just a little bit tricky. So my route into industry is completely different to yours. The same kind of courses just weren't available to me, so I had a totally different approach into the industry. When I did get a job in industry, I started as a texture artist, then I was a 3D generalist, then I became a lead artist, then a character specialist, where I was a lead or a principal, and then I moved into team management and production, which is now what I still do. So, who am I talking to in this room? Wave a limb at me or something if you are a programmer. Okay, quite a few. Design? Art? Whoa, many. Final year students, wave something at me? Okay, so you final year students, this is particularly pertinent to you, but it is pertinent to second years and first years as well. 6 months, that's how long you've got left in your course, roughly. It's not long, kind of scary, isn't it? Got to go out there and get that first job. So how do you do it? Well, as mentioned before, the chap that was here from EA earlier on mentioned, a lot of what I'm going to say will be similar to what he's got to say, and the reason for that is because it's true. So when you keep hearing the same stuff, it's because it's a fact. So your main way of communicating with studios is through your portfolio. Your portfolio is your shop window. It is not a repository for every bit of work you've ever done, good, bad, or indifferent. So if you do have a repository, have a separate portfolio. Curate that portfolio, edit it, be brutal, get feedback. Make sure that you're showing your absolute best work on there. Far better to show a smaller amount of work of high quality than to show loads of stuff, because you will be remembered for your best piece of work on there, but you'll also be remembered for your worst. So you want to make sure that the poorest piece of work on there is actually still pretty good and something you're quite proud of. If you can add some sort of description for each piece of work to explain why you've created it, was there a brief you were working to? What software you used, what languages you used, the decisions you made whilst you were creating that piece of work. It helps place some context around what people are looking at. Talk to us about the poly counts, show the textures, give us some breakdowns of what you're showing if it's artwork, but provide context. You might even describe how long it took to make it. Or if you were working in a group, make sure that it's understood exactly what your contribution to that piece of work was. You can't claim work that's not your own. Really important on your portfolio is also that you show personal work. So uni work is fabulous, everybody wants to see that, but we also want to see what your work is like, what you are into, that's not just for a uni assignment. So your own work, your own learning, the work that you've been really excited to do that shows your flair, that's your own personal work. That can separate you from everybody else in your year group who are working to the same assignment. So really important to have that personal work in there too. You will need a CV. CVs aren't necessarily very exciting, but they are required, and you would be surprised how dismal they can be. Really dismal. So please make sure that you put your contact details on them and make sure that they're correct. So if you add a phone number, really helpful if it's actually the phone number that works. Your email, your full URL, you'll need to talk about your education in reverse chronicle order, which of course means most recent first. Talk about your experiences in reverse chronicle order. Tell us a little bit about your interests. It's really helpful for us to understand about you as a whole. You as a games developer is one thing. What else do you do? What are you into? It also means that when you come in for interview, they can say, oh, you're really into, I don't know, knitting. I don't know, whatever it is. But you can actually have something to talk about beyond just talking about games dev. Provide references on there, and if you don't want to put their contact details, then please suggest that you will give them when requested. And proofread it. If you're handing over a sloppy CV, fair chance your work will be sloppy too. So taking that time to proofread and make sure that you're handing over something bulletproof is really important. You might find that a lot of job adverts don't mention a cover letter. Unless they specifically say they don't want one, I would always give them one. Always give a cover letter, because it's an opportunity to show off the research that you've done into their company, their ethos, their products, and to demonstrate to them exactly what you could bring to their company. 1 page maximum, couple of paragraphs even, but it's a little opportunity to show some personality, so it's really worth having. But you really should tailor that to every single application. There's no point sending out the same thing to every company. They can see that and then they know you're not that bothered about their company. If you don't get replies, so you might put out 20, 30, 40, 50 applications, and you might have some instances where you're not getting a response. Try not to take it personally. It can be tough, but try not to, because a lot of companies get a lot of applications and it can be really hard to get through them all, especially smaller companies where they don't necessarily have specific people whose job it is to do just that one thing. They're wearing many hats, they're doing lots of different jobs. The other thing that can really help with you getting that first role is networking, as mentioned previously. If you're not already networking, you can do it online for sure, but it doesn't quite replace the difference between meeting someone in person and them really getting to know you a little bit. There will be networking events around these parts, definitely, so if you can possibly do so, try and get along to them. There are also specific female events as well for the ladies in the room if you want to attend those types of things. So assuming that your fabulous CV and amazing portfolio have attracted the attention of the employer, then you're hopefully going to get invited to an interview. What they might give you before the interview is a test. Has anybody done an art test or a code test yet for any companies? Not yet? Okay, so some companies do, some companies don't. But if they give you a test, it's really important that you read it thoroughly and that you actually understand what it is that they are trying to get out of you. They want to see that you're committed enough to applying for the job that you're prepared to put the work in. They want to see that you can follow instructions. They want to see that you can do the actual task itself. So it's really important to plan that out, set time aside to do it, because a lot of them are timed. They'll say, here's the test, you've got 7 days. So make sure you're ready to start it and you've got that time set aside. There's no point doing it and then going away for a few days and giving yourself a day and a half to do a 7-day test. List out the work, add a little flair that is your own to that as well. Show a little flair, show something that you're adding. You're giving them what they want, but you're also giving them a little bit extra that shows you're going above and beyond. If it's a big company, and they might not thank me for this, then look the art tests up, look the code tests up, because other people will have done them. And you can look at what they've done and learn what's good and what's not so good about them and do yours better than theirs and hopefully get a job. When you go for interview, it's vital to do your research about the company. If you turn up not knowing a thing about that company, it doesn't matter if it's EA or a little indie studio or whoever it is, they will expect you to know about their company. Chances are they will want you to be able to discuss the products. They will want you to understand company ethos. They will want you to show that you know that. So research is vital when you're going for interview. You should always bring examples of your work with you, just in case they are not able to demonstrate your work on site. If you bring stuff with you, then that's great. If you're going to try and access a folio, remember that you might have to put your password in, and you might be going, what is it again? In which case you can't then show the folio, and that looks a bit embarrassing. So try and remember to know your passwords too. Don't listen to your mum. Not often I'd say that, but you do not have to wear a suit to an interview in a games industry situation. Smart casual is absolutely fine. Do not bring your mum with you. Seriously, someone did that. I interviewed a guy and his mum was with him, and I thought she was just driving him there. No, she wanted to come into the interview to tell me what a good boy he was. Not so much, really. Off you pop. Be on time. It's really simple, but it's really important. So recce the event the day before so you know where you're going. Make sure you know what's going on, which door to get in. It's not always obvious. Do not be late. Don't turn up drunk or with a head full of cocaine or smelly. All of those have happened. It does happen. So it's really worth making an effort. If you've not been at a hairdresser in recent history, get a haircut, have a wash, sort yourselves out before you go. It's not a big deal, but you'd be surprised. Coming in with dinner down your top, it's not a good look. Bit of cleanliness. Bring a bottle of water with you, because it gives you 20 seconds to think of an answer to a question while you have a little drink. And also, if you're a bit nervy, you can get a bit dry, and it can be a little bit tricky. So just having that little minute to have a little drink of water is really handy. Try and relax. Easier said than done. But everyone's been there, everyone's been in that situation, and everybody knows that you might be a little bit nervous going for an interview. So try not to worry too much. Bring a notepad if you want, because you should prepare some questions for the interviewer, so that at the end when they say, have you got any questions for us, you can say, yeah, and then you'll remember what they are. So your reputation in industry is vital, and you don't have one yet. That's the problem of being a student, is that you don't yet have an industry reputation. You do have a reputation with each other, though, and that's your first industry network. You're already networking with all these people who may well scatter off into various areas of industry and become your first network of contacts. So it's important that you get your game face on with those people now, because they'll remember what you're like. And then when you go into industry, maintaining that good reputation and keeping that game face on and being a nice, friendly human being is really important. Because games is a little bit like musical chairs. Every now and then the music stops and everybody moves around a bit. And you'll find that everyone knows everyone. So it's really important to maintain that good reputation and to be nice to everybody in the company, not just the boss, but everybody. The cleaners, everybody. Being kind does not cost anything. Yummy. A healthy life-work balance. Super important. Pizza's great, but not every night for 10 weeks. Yes, I have done that. Every single night. I have flashbacks when I smell Domino's. Honestly. It's not a good thing. So, if you're working in the games industry, which you will be soon, there will be periods where you'll have to do a little bit of overtime. Hopefully not very much, but when you do, it's even more important at those points that you look after yourself, that you get fresh air, that you get exercise, that you think about your intake and you look after yourselves, because presumably you want to be in the games industry for a good long time, and to do that, you want to keep yourself healthy. And speaking of healthy, your turn.
Many of you today, humble students without much of a clue what happens next. I was fortunate enough to get a scholarship to Sony, which included a master's degree at ECU and a 6-month internship at the now defunct Evolution Studios. That was it, my foot in the door. I then tried the independent scene for a while with Secret Sorcery, then back to Evolution, which now go by Codemasters, then finally onto indie development once more with Wushu, where I have helped our small team develop incredible content for the past 12 months. Do you want me to Hello? Is that better? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we can all hear me now. So this is something that's already been touched on a little today in the panel, but I think it's really important to stress. So imposter syndrome is the idea that you're not good enough, you're not skillful enough, not talented enough, not capable enough. Even if it's a task you've done a million times before and you excel at it, there's a small doubt in your mind that always will tell you, you are not a person who can do this. And you'll look around at all your peers and you'll see people who are far more capable and talented than you, and you'll look at them and think, that's not me, I'm not them. This simply isn't true. You are capable enough and you aren't an imposter. The bad news is, sadly, this feeling never really goes away. I suffer with it, Joe suffers with it, every developer you'll ever meet will suffer with it. The important thing is to recognise that the people around you are also struggling with the same things in your mind that you're struggling with. We know ourselves from the inside. We're very aware of our own doubts and idiocies, believe me. But what others see is what we see of others is a far narrower view of their capabilities and only what they want to show us. It's through this lens we define them and that we see their talents, that they know so much more, they're so much more. I think I've gone off again. Testing. Okay. It's through this lens we define them, that they know so much more, they're so much more able and skilled and talented. I guarantee you they're all struggling with the same doubts and second guesses you are. We're all human, and once we stop putting others on this pedestal, you can finally see the anxieties and struggles the rest of your peers are also struggling with. So never stop learning. So everyone in this room is an academic, a creative. You thrive on education and knowledge, and it is that fire that encourages and empowers you. There'll always be new technology, new software, new hardware, new gadgets to learn, new programs to sink your teeth into, new ways of doing things, new pipelines. Isn't that wonderful? You're part of an ever-evolving, ever-improving industry. How exciting is it that you get to continue to challenge and push yourself every day as a natural side effect of your career? Never get complacent though, because you won't know it all. Recognise that as an opportunity to improve and learn. Not that you're falling behind. Embrace these new concepts, new knowledge, new people to learn from. So don't create a video games echo chamber. Welcome to the universe. This is where you live. Take it all in. There's a lot of magical, wonderful, exciting things out there for you to absorb. If you look for reference exclusively inside video games, you're going to create a very limited pool of knowledge and reference to draw from. Just because you're a developer doesn't mean you now live within this vacuum of video games. Read, go to museums, galleries, travel the world, look at art, photography, fashion, film, try new foods, experience new cultures, try a new genre that's out of your comfort zone, talk to people and ask questions. There's so much life out there, all of it waiting for you to tap into and draw reference from. I'm not saying don't play games, please do. Just make sure to feed your mind in other ways too. Okay, so you're a dab hand at programming or art or level design or whatever your discipline is. You've got the skills to pay the bills, but you don't have the personality to match. Arrogance, brutishness, antisocial, unkind. We can spot these personality quirks a mile off. And if we don't, you can be sure that reputation will soon stick like mud. We'll often interview candidates from varying degrees of skill. If you're talented, that's great. You've secured your interview. But once the interviewers meet you and we discover you're a bit of an arse, sorry, but don't let the door hit you on the way out. Friendliness and loveliness really is worth its weight in gold. If you possess these qualities, well done. Let them shine during your interview and show those interviews you're really the kind of person they want to share their office space with. Skills and knowledge can easily be learned with time and practice, but don't fear, the same is also true of life skills and personalities. If you can recognise where your faults lie and improve on them, then you may also find that the relationships in your life also improve. So, thank you for having us up here today. We've been Joe Daly and Lucy Lowe. If you have any questions, we'd love to answer them now. Well done.
Anybody want to ask anything? Nobody at all? Tremendous. So you know when you get to the end of the interview? Maybe someone had a question. Where?
Over here.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to know if there's any upcoming career opportunities with Wushu at all, or is that something that's coming later?
So the email address on there, the careers at Wushu, if you drop us a line on there or catch us today and have a chat. But yes, we are expanding our studio.
Brilliant, thank you.
Hey. There's a mic coming.
Hi. What type of games do you make?
So we are a small but growing gradually studio. We make our own game, our own IP, which I can't tell you about because you know how it is. But we also work in co-development with a number of other studios. We're working on a bunch of different things at the moment, and I can't tell you about any of them. It's helpful, isn't it? Sorry. But we are working on a range of really quite different things.
Question over here, I think there's a mic coming.
Yeah, sorry, I'll put myself awkwardly inside. Right, so as a first year, it's going to take me another few years before I'm actually looking for opportunities to work at. Obviously, if I go presumably to wushustudios.com, I can find out about your company and when you're hiring. What about other companies? What is a good way of just looking at a broad scope and finding out where can I go to for jobs?
So these kind of events are perfect because you'll find about companies that are off the beaten track. Companies you may not have heard of. Networking events, again, take as many business cards you can from people. If you want to follow them on their social media sites or make actual connections with people in that company, that's perfect. It's never too early to start doing that stuff. So if you're in first year, still try and network and make connections. That's a perfect way to sort of get the feelers out for what sort of jobs are going around. And there'll always be work, so don't worry. If we're hiring now, we'll still be hiring in 2 years' time when you graduate. So just keep looking around. New jobs are always popping up.
You might also want to think about attending things like EGX. I know that it's sometimes a bit London-centric. What you can do if you go to events like that is take your folio with you. And there are devs, so just go and plague them, basically. They won't thank me, but, you know. Make contact with them, ask them if they'll give you feedback. You might be able to extract a business card and then you can continue talking to them about your work and maybe get a little bit of something back from them as well. Develop is a conference that happens down in Brighton in the summer, and they often have students as ushers at the event, because otherwise you have to pay quite a lot of money to attend. But if you're an usher, then you don't get paid, I don't think, but you basically get a hang in all the talks and point to developers as to where to go to the next talk, but you get a hang about in the talk yourself. So that can be quite a good way, because all the networking happens at night. Everybody goes to the pub, and you can chase around after them and try and make contact with people and try and find out what's going on. One little word of warning, at a lot of these events, there's quite often a free bar. Might sound great, but you don't want to be remembered as the dude that threw up in his own shoes. Yes, that's happened too. Yep.
So I'm also, so as like first, I'm also first year like in programming, and I'm quite new to programming, so I haven't really got much skills to speak of at the moment. And like I'm thinking in terms of like doing personal projects, like should I like is it better to start working on them soon or wait till I've acquired more skills?
I'd start as soon as possible. There's nothing to prevent you doing it. Even kids in school can make personal projects.
And that's how you learn, that's how you acquire those skills. Put them into practice, figure out, oh, I don't know how to do this thing, so I'll research how it's done, I'll find tutorials online, and then suddenly your knowledge will grow just for the fact that you've tried to do your own project.
Okay, thanks.
And when you're able to demonstrate that kind of mentality, that you're teaching yourself as well as what you're learning here and what you're learning from your peers, then that's a really good, strong thing to be able to demonstrate when you go into an interview situation or in a portfolio. Game jams as well. There's some of the game jams, depends which ones you go to, there'll be professional devs at those too. So that's another way to add another thing to your portfolio. I worked on this game at this game jam, I spoke to these guys, I've done this bit of networking, and it all adds to your package as an individual, really. Yep. Oh.
Can I ask if you can tell us or release some information, how is there any specific project that you really enjoyed to work on, or how your average day in a studio kind of looks like?
Well, mine and Lucy's days are quite different because we've got quite different roles. So I come from an art background, but my job now is in production. Is anyone inclined to being a producer at any point? Oh, okay. So I didn't go into the industry intending to be a producer. I just kind of grew into it, fell into it. I don't know, ended up. I basically try to make sure that everyone is working on the right stuff, in the right order, and they have what they need to be able to do their job. And I liaise with everyone in the studio, and I liaise with any external clients that we have. So my day can be working on a Kanban board with individuals on teams. It can be doing calls with people in different countries who work for different developers. I can be doing all sorts of different things. So no one day of my working life is exactly the same. Lucy's day is quite different to mine.
Yeah, well, the thing with working in a small team, if you're of an art discipline, you'll want to have quite an eclectic range of skills to back yourself up with. So I've got a background in environment art, but I'm currently doing the UI for our game. So it's like graphic design skills are needed suddenly. And I've been doing things like physics and destruction, like skills that I wouldn't necessarily have learnt when I was studying back at uni, but I've sort of had to pick up as I've gone along because I'm in a small team. You can't afford to hire an animator to do this thing and a texture artist to do another thing. We all have to pick up the slack. So if you go to a small team like we are, you might find that you get a lot more choice of the things that you want to do, because one day I'll be doing UI, next day I'll be doing destruction, next day I'll be doing modelling or substance. Anything could happen week on week. So my day is a mixed bag from day to day of whatever needs doing for the game. I'll have to pick something up based on my skill set, basically.
Someone else had a question over there too. Ah, yes. Is that way?
Down the corridor.
Sorry. Yell.
Just from your experience in the industry so far, not to discount one or the other, but do you think it's easier to get into indie, or do you think just, it's the role you want to go for? It doesn't matter whether it's AAA, indie, it's just what role suits you?
I don't think one's easier than the other. I started in indie, but not in a comparative indie. It was a long time ago. I think if you have an inclination to work on AAA, then go for it. But you might find that some of the indies are also working on AAA because they're co-developing. So they might be making what could be regarded as a standard indie type product, but they might also be in co-development with an enormous company working on something that everybody will absolutely know what it is from day one. So it's not really that straightforward. I think you should kind of follow your gut a little bit and go for what you feel. If you want to specialise and do something very small but very intense, like, I mean, I was a character artist for a good long while. I worked for EA, I worked for Activision, I worked for people like that. And I had a very specialised role. It was very narrow but very deep. So I was expected to be of a certain calibre to do that role. That was great. But then working at a smaller studio, you get to do a range of different things. So it's about finding what suits you. And it might be that you work in one for a while and think, well, actually, I want to try something different. And you can move around. You don't, I mean, you might want to stay with the same studio forever. You might not. You might want to move around. So I don't think one is necessarily easier than the other. I think they just have slightly different mindsets. But to be honest, right now, as students and as new graduates, what you are is you're not the finished product. You are potential. So you don't have to make a decision right then and stick with it for the rest of your career forever till you die. I changed my mind and moved into production. You can move around a bit. You know, you can start as a generalist and become more of a specialist. You can think, oh, well, I've been a specialist for a while, I want to go back to doing a bit of generalist. So you don't have to stick with just one thing. Any other questions? Okay, I think everybody's hungry. Want their lunch? Oh.
In your experience,
so in your experience, discounting sort of co-development, how much interconnectivity and support is there between studios, both small and big?
So we live in Liverpool, work in Liverpool, and the Northwest has got a really thriving dev community. There are a number of what I would say are mid-sized studios now, as well as a couple of quite large studios. Well, the biggest in the UK is in the Northwest. We do have networking events. We all get together. We all know each other. I mentioned previously about it being kind of like musical chairs. If you've been in dev for as many millions of years as I have, you get to know loads of people because you move around. So everyone is friends with each other, pretty much. It's all quite chummy. You might not be able to discuss the products you're working on because they're under NDA, but you're able to talk about dev in general, and you're able to kind of be supportive of each other. And some of the companies, for example, the smaller companies, it might be that they're offered the opportunity to co-develop with a giant company who want them to do something really cool, but they just don't have the bandwidth at that time. So they'll say, oh, well, you might want to check those guys out. They're in another studio doing something different, but they might have some bandwidth. So there is that kind of, generally that generosity of spirit. It's not a competition where everybody's fighting against each other. It's kind of, we're all in the same boat. We're all trying to make cool games and be reasonable people. It's not a bad way to live. And the networking is great, you know, being able to go out and chat with your mates. And I'd say 99% of my mates are in dev. So it's great. We're done. Okay, thanks very much.